Toy Story 3 is one of Pixar's best movies and stands as a crowning achievement of what the series could be. What if I told you that the first version of Toy Story 3 was written in 2002 as a bargaining chip against Pixar and might have been 2D animated? Well, that's the movie we'll be discussing today, with the help of the film's original writers, Cheri and Bill Steinkellner, as we break down the development, plots, and cancellation of both versions of the Whodunit draft of Toy Story 3. The year was 2002, and it was a tense time between Disney and Pixar. During the development of Toy Story 2, Disney's at the time CEO Michael Eisner made a decision that would blindside the studio. Pixar had recently signed a 5-film contract with Disney. A Bug's Life was the first of those films. But Eisner argued that since Toy Story 2 was a sequel, and the contract specified 5 original projects, that Toy Story 2 wouldn't count toward those 5 films, which left a very bad taste in Pixar's mouth. Meanwhile, husband and wife writing duo Cheri and Bill Steinkellner were working on their show Teacher's Pet for Disney. They had a tight working relationship with one of their bosses, David Stainton, who had recently been promoted to president of Walt Disney Television Animation, which also gave him jurisdiction of Disney Movie Tunes studio.
We were really tight with David Stainton, who then moved up in the world and at various times dragged us along with him.
Stainton had drafted the Steinkellners to write a Toy Story project for Disney Movie Tune, but it wasn't Toy Story as you'd traditionally expect it.
And I have some vague memory, and I don't know if this is real or I dreamed it, that the intention was that it would be a hand-drawn animation, like the Toy Story cartoons, that it wasn't going to be CG. Do you remember anything like that, Billy?
No, that sounds about right.
While Cheri's recollection can't be directly confirmed, it is worth noting that not only was Disney Movie Tunes' film output entirely 2D animated, save for one project, until 2008, but the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command cartoon already set a precedent for 2D animated, non-CG Toy Story stories. The duo was given free rein to write whatever story they wanted for the gang, but the reason why they had so much freedom proved to be a fascinating and political double-edged sword.
And it was my understanding, I think, that it was a sort of a stalking horse. They were never going to make that script, but I thought they were going to use it against Pixar to say, like, oh, we could just drop the dime and go do this, even though I don't think anybody believed that. But
I just don't think anybody cared. I think we were just holding the space. I think there was a little winking.
Yeah, I think there was definitely winking going on because we knew it, but I don't think anybody actually said it. Oh, they almost possibly said it. I think they joked about it a bit. So
yeah, there was jokes. They just cut us loose and said, "You guys, go make a mystery, have fun, do whatever you want." I don't remember pitching anything to anyone ever.
No, I don't either. I just remember I was like they didn't care. I mean, they just wanted to have a script.
They wrote a script that was close to their hearts, drawing a bit of inspiration from real life in the form of the movie's newest headlining character, a sock monkey named Hee Hee, who was a real toy owned by one of their children, in a story that saw him, Woody, and the rest of the gang in the center of an Agatha Christie-inspired Whodunit Mystery. To that end, their draft, dated July of 2002, isn't even titled Toy Story 3, with the placeholder name of Toy Story Christmas Mystery Project. But before we explore how the film was killed, revived, and rewritten as Toy Story 3, without the knowledge of the Steinkellners, let us, in a Hema Studios exclusive, take a deep dive into Cheri and Bill Steinkellner's version of Toy Story 3. Our story begins on Christmas morning. As Andy opens up his presents, he receives no new toys, only books and clothes. In his room, his toys are pumped. No new competition for them. However, Sheriff Woody Pride convinces the others that they need to be there for Andy to cheer him up. But as fate would have it, Andy very quickly becomes a bookworm, falling in love with the T.J. Kearns Boyd Detective series. Andy winds up watching a movie adaptation of one of the books, Curse of the Clock of Doom, but he thinks that the book is better, turning it off right before the ending to start a new book. But the toys are enraptured by this story, especially Buzz, who even guesses that the villain faked his demise and why he did it. Shortly after this, Andy, his mom, and Molly take an end-of-year trip to Grandma Elise's ranch, Andy packing his books with his toys almost being an afterthought. The toys bicker in the cramped suitcase, but Woody is oblivious, excited to spend some time at the ranch. But he eventually snaps at his friends when their chatter becomes too much to bear, remarking that life would be simpler if he didn't have to take care of everybody. Grandma greets the family as they arrive, but Andy is nose deep in his book. She ushers him into the den, plops him in Grampy's reading chair, and gives him a reading buddy, a sock monkey named Hee Hee. He used to be his Uncle Andrew's reading buddy years ago. She then proceeds to pull out a box of vintage T.J. Kearns books for him. Day turns to night, and Andy never winds up unpacking his suitcase. So Mrs. Potato Head uses the peg on the back of her eye to poke a hole in the zipper, unzip it from the inside, and let everybody out. The toys make their way to the den, and Ham raises the idea of burning Andy's books, so he's forced to play with them again. But Woody immediately shuts this down. The gang finds Andy as he dozes off mid-page with Hee Hee trapped under his arm. They free the monkey, and he quickly recognizes Woody, but the sheriff has no memory of him. We learn that one Christmas years ago, Grandma was going to pass down Hee Hee to Andy, but since the toy was older, she wanted to wash him up first. Not reading the weather report for that day, she hung him outside to dry on the clothesline, where he quickly became the victim of a snowstorm, and had to watch through the window Andy unwrap Woody. Grandma found him a day later, washed him one more time, and put him back away. Everybody is sympathetic to the story, except for Woody. But Hee Hee wouldn't expect Woody to understand. He has a family. To try and lighten the mood, Ham throws Andy's book toward the fireplace. Woody lunges for it in the air. Hee Hee grabs him so he doesn't fall into the fire, but Woody does fall into the flame, eventually getting pinned inside. Thinking quickly, Buzz manages to save him and the book. As Woody gets his bearings, Hee Hee tells him that he should learn to be more careful around fire. Woody questions if him falling into the fireplace was an accident, and Hee Hee tells him that everything is an accident unless he believes in fate. The moment is broken as Andy's mom enters the room. The gang goes limp, and Hee Hee dives into Andy's arms. She carries the new duo up to bed, with the toys sneaking their way back into the suitcase shortly after. But Woody wants to keep an eye on Hee Hee, so he decides to sleep outside. The next morning, Andy and the rest of the family leave to go sledding by Uncle Andrew's, and the toys realize that Wheezy is gone. Everybody pairs off to search for him. Hee Hee offers his help, but Woody, wary, shoots him down. As everybody returns, Woody enters the room panicked. Ham wandered off, and he can't find him. Woody accuses Hee Hee for the disappearance, but the monkey raises the point that Woody was the last one with him. As the toys continue their search, one by one they're pulled into a closet with a wire hanger by Woody, who convinces the gang that Hee Hee is responsible for Wheezy and Ham's disappearance and him falling into the fireplace. Now riled up, the gang charges out to attack the sock monkey, but they sober when they hear Woody from another part of the house scream out in terror. They find him standing over a pile of Hee Hee colored yarn, unraveled. Rex is sickened by the sight and storms out. Woody goes after him, but manages to lose him too. So the toys begin another search. As Woody and Bo Peep investigate, he jokingly scares her to try and break the tension, but Bo isn't amused, so she storms off agitated. Woody follows, but he can't find her either. He takes off, tells Buzz and Jessie about it, then rushes to go tell the Potato Heads. But before he could warn the Mr. and Mrs., they're picked off too. Woody, Buzz, and Jessie realize that there are only two other places they could possibly look in the house: the attic and the basement. As Buzz and Jessie search the attic, she climbs an unsteady stack of boxes to search the rafters. But the tower tumbles, with Buzz catching her and diving out of harm's way. She thanks him, and he blushes. As she leans in to plant a tender smooch, the lights go out and she's dragged off. Buzz stumbles through the dark, eventually bumping into a dressmaker's dummy, ricocheting down the steps, through the kitchen, and down into the basement to find Woody at the breaker panel turning the lights back on. And then a thought hits Buzz like a ton of bricks. It's just him and Woody trapped in a house in the middle of a snowstorm. Buzz knows that he didn't do anything, and Woody was alone for every disappearance. He figures that Woody even probably used the wire hanger to unravel Hee Hee. Buzz accuses his friend, but Woody denies everything and takes off, frantically searching for his friends throughout the house to prove his innocence, with Buzz chasing behind him the entire time. Woody eventually falls out of a window into the blizzard, flopping in the wind before eventually using his bandana as a parasail to carry him into the loft of the barn, where he finds an old pull-string Chatty Cathy doll, who doesn't seem to be alive in the way that our heroes are. As Woody cycles through her pull-string phrases, she begins to eventually only repeat one.
Tell me a story.
Woody eventually becomes frustrated with her, mimicking her. During this, he knocks over some alphabet blocks and continues to mimic her, arranging them to spell, "Tell me a story." But what he sees shocks him. The top of the blocks read out, "I know a secret." Woody pulls her string again.
I love you.
He rearranges the blocks. Whodunit? Woody's close.
Let's have a tea party.
He has your family. One more pull.
Please change my dress.
The answer is in the book. Although the answer is incomplete, Woody notices a book nearby, a ratty copy of The Curse of the Clock of Doom. He picks it up and comes to a shocking revelation. He tosses the book. As it flies out of the barn, the wind blows its tattered binding apart. Meanwhile, Buzz tries to track down Woody in the blizzard, but his metal bearings wind up freezing, locking him in place. Just then, an airborne page from the book connects with him. As he reads the page, he also comes to a revelation. Woody trudges through the storm to return to the house, and finds Buzz frozen. Woody can't move him, so he finds a jackrabbit, rides him back to the house, and drags Buzz along with him. They make their way back, and a now defrosted Buzz chases Woody as he climbs the trellis back into the window. This chase continues through the house before they eventually wind up in a tussle, culminating in Woody stumbling off the mantle and into the fireplace. Buzz is horrified. Just then, Hee Hee emerges. He faked his unravelment. As for the gang, they're all trapped inside of Andy's suitcase. Buzz lunges for the case, but Hee Hee scoops him in a yarn net and shoves him inside with the others. The villain picks up the case, ready to throw it into the fireplace with Woody, when out of seemingly nowhere, the suitcase is lassoed by a familiar pull string. As Woody emerges from behind the woodbin, Hee Hee's not the only one who could fake his demise. Woody reveals that he and Buzz figured out that, like the villain from Curse of the Clock of Doom, Hee Hee faked his death, which meant that he was still in the house and probably had everybody. So Woody and Buzz staged the entire fight. And enraged, Hee Hee attacks Woody with a fire poker, lamenting that he stole the love of his life. But he's not talking about Andy, but his bride-to-be, She. He explains that years ago, the Christmas night that Andy got Woody, as Andy went to bed, Woody used a sock next to Grandma's sewing kit as a bedroll, and ditched it right before Andy woke up. Andy wants to play in the snow, but he can't find one of his socks. So he grabs the sock that Woody used, which would have been She, and rushes outside. Grandma searches for the sock to begin creating Hee Hee's bride-to-be, and the storm-battered monkey watches in horror as Andy plays in the snow, losing one of his boots, catching his sock on a rock, and unraveling it. Grandma finally notices Hee Hee frozen and unpins him from the clothesline, and sees the strands of yarn on the ground, unraveled before her life even began. Hee Hee tries to plunge the poker into Woody, but Buzz steps in and flips Hee Hee to the others. The sock begs to be thrown in the fire. His life is nothing without She. The toys take pity on him, and Woody realizes that Bo's cane may be able to unknot the yarn net, and Bo realizes that wire hanger may work as a crochet hook. Our story comes to a close at the wedding of Hee Hee and She. As the bride reaches the altar, he lifts her veil to reveal a god-awful mess. But he thinks she's beautiful. Wheezy sings as the toys and the jackrabbit join Hee Hee and She for a first dance that proves the truth sometimes is truly stranger than fiction. After Cheri and Bill turned in their script, they had a discussion with David Stainton and Michael Eisner where they received some feedback and wrote some notes, and in their own words,
I just recall it being one of many, many things that just seemed to disappear into the ether, and you move on, do the next thing.
over the next few years, Cheri and Bill would go on to work on the film adaptation of Teacher's Pet, Stainton would be promoted to become the president of Walt Disney Feature Animation, and tensions between Disney and Pixar would come to a head, climaxing with Pixar after 10 months of negotiation with Disney, announcing in January of 2004 that once they finished out the 5-picture contract with Disney, they wouldn't be pursuing another deal with them, ending their partnership. Amidst this chaos, Eisner wasn't shaken by this loss. In fact, he believed that Disney didn't actually need Pixar. As part of their current deal, Disney owned everything that Pixar created while working with them, which meant that Disney could make sequels to any of those movies without Pixar's involvement. Eisner even figured that nobody would be able to tell the difference. As 2004 rolled into 2005, Disney quietly ramped up Circle 7 Animation, their new studio custom-built to create Pixar sequels. During this time, Cheri and Bill's script was rewritten by David Guyon and Michael Handelman. Many years later, that version of the script would be released to the public by script collector Yoshi Killer 2S, and this led to the Steinkellners finding out that somebody rewrote their script.
And then one day, I think, many, many, many years later, I got a Google alert, because of course I got my name on Google Alerts, and to the effect of somebody like really dragging our Toy Story 3. And then I went and looked up wherever it was. There aren't that many links to our names in Toy Story 3. And I read it and it was like, wait, they're talking about something we never wrote. They're looking at a different story that has our name on it.
This new draft, while still being a whodunit that features boy and girl sock monkeys and a trip to Grandma's house, has an entirely different story, now sporting the title of Toy Story 3. So before we explore why this version of the script would ultimately be cancelled, let's take another deep dive into the final version of the whodunit draft of Toy Story 3. Our story begins on a train in the Old West. Ham has been slaughtered. Now he can't squeal on whoever stole the priceless Hope Marble. Sheriff Woody Pride investigates his fellow passengers to find the perpetrator. Eventually, it's revealed to be Rex. Buzz Lightyear bursts in to subdue the attacker, but Rex reveals that he tied Jessie to the front of the train. Buzz takes off to save her, and Woody, riding Bullseye, chases Rex on top of the train, but Rex quickly makes a hasty escape. As the train runs out of track and the remaining caboose begins to teeter over the edge of a cliff, Andy's mom calls him downstairs for breakfast. Jessie flirtatiously teases Buzz that, in Andy's head, she was his girlfriend, which leaves him totally flustered. The toys realize that nobody actually found the marble, and begin to accuse each other of taking it. Woody tells everybody to not let their imaginations run away with them, and chalks it up to Andy taking it. But, as it turns out, Rex fell on it. With that settled, Woody makes an announcement. Andy's room is getting remodeled today, so for the night, most of the toys are getting packed up, but some of them are going to spend the night with Andy at Grandma's house. Everybody is blindsided, except for Ham, who heard Andy's mom talking about it on the phone yesterday. Woody fields everybody's complaints that Grandma is crazy and the house is creepy, but Woody assures them and Buzz, who's never met Grandma, that this isn't the case. Andy, the gang, and his mom pull up to Grandma's very creepy house, perched on a lonely hill. Just from looking at the house, Rex is worried if they'll even make it through the night. Andy and his mom enter the seemingly empty house to find Grandma pour out of a closet wearing a stethoscope. She was listening to the pipes because she thought she heard a humming noise inside. As day quickly turns to stormy night, Grandma reads Andy a horrifying bedtime story, leaving him and the toys spooked just as the power goes out. The gang lays awake, and Potato Head realizes that he left Mrs. Potato Head's lips downstairs. She sent them along with him to keep him company. Everybody is on edge and afraid to split up, so they all head downstairs together. As they retrieve the lips, a stack of firewood tumbles toward Woody, but Buzz pushes him out of the way, which gets him pinned in the lit fireplace. Woody tries and fails to lasso his friend out, but when all hope seems lost, a dashing sock monkey named Jack Challenger appears, and using his trusty yo-yo, manages to free Buzz. Everybody thanks and admires Jack except for an embarrassed Woody, who recognizes the toy but can't quite place him. And for a brief second, recognition also flashes across Jack's face, but he denies knowing Woody. The power kicks back on and the toys are hit with an awful stench. And out emerges another sock monkey, the geeky, lumpy Gladiola. Jack introduces her as his strange companion who follows him everywhere. Gladiola apologizes for her smell, she fell in the cat's milk bowl a few weeks ago, and being 100% wool, she's pretty absorbent. As it turns out, Grandma made Gladiola her first failed attempt at a sock monkey. She was relegated to a closet where she taught herself how to dance and hum very loudly as she does it. Jack, on the other hand, claims to be bought from Sotheby's as a companion to Gladiola, who smittenly tells the gang how Jack has traveled the world, having adventures in Egypt and Shanghai and the North Pole, just to name a few. As Jack recounts these tales to the others, Woody is very annoyed. And despite his protest, the others want to arrange it so that Andy finds Jack and Gladiola when he wakes up. Woody pulls Buzz aside to tell him that he does not trust Jack, but Buzz tells Woody to not let his imagination run away with him. As they make their way through the house, Jesse notices that Bullseye is missing. Outside of the laundry room, Woody and Buzz find one of his stirrups. And as they progress into the bathroom, they're ambushed by Grandma's cat, Periwinkle, who chases all the toys into the dining room. Woody tries to ride him and is very quickly thrown off, but Buzz and Jack manage to subdue their feline foe. As everybody reconvenes, Rex notices that Slinky is also gone. They eventually decide to return to Andy's room where it's safe. Woody wants to leave Jack and Gladiola in the hallway, but Buzz protests this since Jack just saved his life. As he and Buzz argue, Woody accidentally hits Andy's door, knocking it shut, locking them all in the hallway. Later, Rex wonders why somebody would want to take them out, and Gladiola reveals that she overheard Grandma talking to Andy's mom, telling her that there's not going to be space for all of the toys in Andy's new room. He's only keeping 2. Maybe it has to do with that. Everybody is shocked by this revelation, but she thought they already knew. Just then, Grandma comes down the hall, holding a bundled handkerchief. Buzz and Woody speculate that maybe Grandma was supposed to get rid of the toys before Andy got home, and that Bullseye and Slinky might be in her bundle. Woody, Buzz, and Jack follow Grandma out to her garden. Buzz and Jack continue their bromance that's been building through the night, leaving Woody dejected, before eventually getting separated from this new duo. Buzz splits off from Jack, trying to find Woody. They eventually startle each other, causing Woody to reflexively smack Buzz with a stick. Jack appears out of nowhere and strings Woody up with his yo-yo in retaliation, but Buzz de-escalates the situation. They come to find Grandma on a hot date inside the greenhouse with her gardener, Victor, and it's revealed that inside of her handkerchief bundle was bananas flambé. They are swiftly yanked away by Angus, a garden gnome who is very fond of Victor, who calls them peeping toms. Seeing Jack, he stops a beat, remarking that he saw when Grandma made him. But before anybody could dwell on that, Gladiola runs out, telling them that Jessie is also missing. She went inside of a cupboard, which turned out to lead to a dumbwaiter, and never returned. The gang rides the mechanism up to the dark attic and eventually finds Jessie's hat, alongside Scrabble tiles, spelling out an ominous message. As they return downstairs, Buzz and Woody realize, since Grandma is occupied and Andy is sleeping, the foul play is coming from within their group. Paranoia sets in, everybody turns on each other, and Woody blames Jack, telling him that every time someone goes missing, he's always unaccounted for. And Jack tells Woody that the same can be said for him. But Woody fires back that he has no motive. If Andy was going to keep any 2 toys, it's him and Buzz. At this point, Buzz decides that everybody needs to stay together in this room until the morning. That way, nothing could happen to anybody. Eventually, Potato Head gets up to leave for Grandma's library for a book to pass the time, telling them that if he's the perp, he'll be gone, and if somebody else is the perp and they're all together, he'll be safe. But Jack is uncharacteristically very worried. Potato Head scans the bookshelf and comes to a shocking sight. He pulls a book and begins to read. Just then, the power briefly goes out. As it returns, Jack calls to Buzz from the hallway, and Woody goes to find Potato Head. Ham, Rex, and Gladiola remain in the room, unbearably tense. But Rex tries to reassure the others. As long as they stay together, they'll be safe. But in the time it took Rex to say that, Ham has also disappeared. Gladiola runs out of the room cowering, as does Rex. But once he hits the hallway, he is also snatched. Woody finds Potato Head's mustache. As Buzz enters, they see the same cryptic Scrabble message, alongside an incomplete message from Potato Head, written in dust, trying to warn them who's doing this. Gladiola bursts in and tells them that Ham and Rex are gone. Jack follows behind her, leaving Woody even more suspicious. Noticing a nearby open heating duct that leads to the furnace, Jack tells them that if Potato Head was taken there, he's toast. But this does remind him of an adventure he had on the edge of a volcano. As he talks, Woody notices Potato Head's book, picks it up, and finishes Jack's story for him as he talks, before revealing the cover. A Safari of Fear, a Jack Challenger adventure. On the bookshelf, there's a whole series of Jack Challenger books, detailing his adventures in Egypt and Shanghai and the North Pole, just to name a few. Gladiola is shocked. His real name is Hee. One Christmas Eve, a year after Gladiola was made, Grandma decided to try making another sock monkey for Andy, the same year she was set to give him Woody. She set him down on the wrapping table next to Woody, who knocks a tub of glue onto him, covering his head. After an attempt by Grandma to wash it off, dry him outside in a December storm, and a quick trip to the microwave, Hee never got to Andy, but watched Woody do just that, and was put in the closet with Gladiola, and couldn't bear to admit that he was unwanted, just like her. So he made it all up. Woody pins the murders on Hee, but he tells Woody that he's no murderer, just a fraud. He apologizes to Gladiola and leaves, with her rushing after him. Buzz thinks Woody should apologize to Hee, because even if he isn't Jack Challenger, he did save Buzz's life, and he refuses to believe that He's a murderer. Woody, agitated, tells him to go be with his new best friend. Woody, now all alone, begins to collect the Scrabble tiles on the floor so he can frame Hee. Gladiola looks for Hee and eventually finds herself alone in the basement. Woody hears a scream and rushes to the basement to find a pile of Gladiola-colored yarn. He picks up the yarn and mourns her. Just then, Buzz and Hee appear at the top of the stairs, shocked at what they see. Enraged, Hee attacks Woody. They fight all through the house, culminating in them spilling into the heating duct. As Hee throws his yo-yo at Woody, he catches and yanks it, sending the monkey tumbling into the furnace. Buzz saw all of it and deduces that Woody is the killer. As Woody explains how this was an accident, he didn't mean to kill Hee. The Scrabble tiles fall out of his pants. Buzz questions if Woody's gonna kill him too, before lunging at him, and they fight through the house, and eventually wind up on the roof, climaxing in Buzz hanging from the gutter. Woody reaches out and tells him he'd never do anything to hurt his best friend, and deep down, Buzz knows Woody is no murderer. They reconcile, but Woody slips on the wet roof and they fall off. And as they recover, Buzz tells Woody that he shouldn't have let Hee pull the wool over his eyes, which gives Woody pause. Gladiola said she was made of wool, but the yarn in the basement felt acrylic. Just then, the duo is captured and Gladiola emerges, revealing that she was behind it all, because she loved Hee, and that he'll always be Jack Challenger to her. She couldn't bear to tell him her feelings, but never had to share him with anybody until the gang came along today. She totally made up the story about Andy only keeping 2 toys to have them turn on each other, because when it comes to her and her love, no one will replace her as his favorite. But now that Woody got rid of him, she's very angry. With the garbage truck just down the block, she disposes of Woody and Buzz in a garbage can at the curb. Inside is everybody else tied up with yarn. Jesse manages to get free and untie everybody, but they're too late. They're thrown into the truck and wind up getting swept into its trash compactor. Meanwhile, Hee managed to survive the furnace, narrowly escaping to find Gladiola, who remorsefully tells him that she did something very bad. As the compactor walls close in, Hee scales the moving truck, gets to the roof, and manages to save his new friends. Potato Head falls back inside, but manages to hit a lever on the way down that opens the back of the truck. They manage to escape on a Pizza Planet box, but as they skip out onto the pavement, Woody notices that Hee was snagged on trash in the truck and didn't make it out. So he lassos onto a nearby farm truck, which pulls the box alongside the garbage truck, allowing Hee to escape the truck and reunite with his new friends. The gang makes their way back to Grandma's house, where Gladiola apologizes. She was jealous, and what she did was wrong. She tells Hee to go with the gang because she deserves to be alone. Hee admits that he's loved Gladiola this entire time, but was afraid that she'd see through his lies. They embrace and walk off back to the closet together. Andy returns home telling his mom how cool Grandma's house was, her ghost stories, her sock monkey toys, and she even told him that sometimes at night she sees the monkeys walking around. And Mom shakes her head. That's Grandma, crazy as ever. Andy enters his new room awestruck. On the wall, there are new shelves for all his toys. Andy leaves, the toys reunite, and Buzz tells Woody that from now on, it's the two of them. Best buds. Woody agrees, just not right now. He was gonna spend some time with Bo Peep. As Woody and Bo walk off, Buzz notices that some of his equipment is gone. Jessie holds it behind her back, flirtatiously asking Buzz if he's going to question her. Buzz is flustered, his visor steams up, and as he fumbles with it, he and Jessie tumble off the bed. As they land on the floor, Jessie leans in and they share a tender smooch. Maybe Andy's new room isn't so bad after all. I really dig the Steinkellner draft, which I think overall is a tight story that really understands the core Toy Story characters. While this draft does feel a bit grander in scope with some cute moments that definitely would have been fun to see on the big screen, in my opinion, this draft doesn't quite come together in the same way. But Disney did now have a script in place and a studio ready to make it, so that raises the question, why did it get canned? By the time news of Circle 7 had become public in March of 2005, so did the news of their Toy Story 3, which would feature Buzz Lightyear being recalled to Taiwan and the toys shipping off to rescue him, written by Jim Hirschfeld. Clearly, there was a change in direction. The Whodunit draft is dated December 8th of 2004, and as originally reported on this show, in early 2005, Hirschfeld wrote a separate draft of Toy Story 3 for Circle 7 that featured Andy's mom getting remarried and the gang becoming part of a blended family, before he was ultimately brought on to do the recall draft, which means that the window between the Whodunit draft's completion and Circle 7 moving in a different direction had to happen relatively quickly. However, despite this move, there were rumors that Disney still liked the script and had it in consideration to be Toy Story 4 if they ever decided to make it. But with Circle 7 ultimately folding in 2006, we can never know for sure. Had Cheri and Bill's version been released as an animated side project, 2D or 3D, I think it would have been a fun adventure in the spirit of Toy Story of Terror or That Time Forgot. As for the rewritten final draft, I would be more dubious, especially pitched as Toy Story 3. So with that being said, I think it's ultimately for the best that the final version of the Whodunit draft was never made. But that's the story of the Whodunit version of Toy Story 3, and the end of yet another episode of Canned Goods. I'd like to thank Cheri and Bill Steinkellner for taking time out of their schedules to sit down and discuss their time working on Toy Story. Their insight and generosity was what made this video possible, so again, thank you so much. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, be good to each other, and stay Hemmas.